Yesterday, I posted a poll on Instagram asking what most people were struggling with in college recruiting. And I gave them 4 options. I said, are you struggling with video? Are you struggling with email? Are you struggling with social media? Or are you struggling with showcases and camps? And then I said, if you're struggling with something that's not listed here, then shoot me a message and tell me what it is that you are in fact struggling with. And I got a bunch of DMs. And one of the things that kept coming up over and over again was, I don't know where to start. Like, I don't even know what the first step is. I don't know, of all these different things that we're talking about here, I don't even know what the first thing that I'm supposed to do is, the first step. And so I'm going to create a guide for where to start in college recruiting. And I figured that while I create this guide, I also might as well just record myself putting this together so that you can kind of see me think about recruiting in real time and what this involves and what this looks like. And so if you want to see that, cool. We're about to do that right now. If you're like, I just want to look at the guide, I don't really care about watching you do it, sweet, just check out the guide. But again, this is going to be for people who are at the very beginning of college recruiting. This is not for people who have been in the process for a while, although you could probably pick up some things and learn some things along the way. So this is going to be, don't know where to start in college recruiting. Follow this exact step-by-step process, okay? Then we're going to say, here's my 30-second rap sheet in college recruiting, so you know that I'm not full of it and actually know what I'm talking about. We may change that wording, but we need to have something like this in here because there are a lot of people in college recruiting who, don't have any experience or little experience or haven't gotten people results, and they are teaching people to do wrong things. And there are going to be people who are reading this who have never heard of me before, never seen me before. They don't know about D1 scholarship. And so we have to show them and tell them that, hey, we actually know what we're doing and we get results for people. So this is cool. Let's get started. All right. So here's what we're going to do. The first thing that we're going to do, remember, this is for people who are in the very beginning of the process. So we have to start from ground zero. I'm going to do the outline for this and sort of hit the big main sections first, and then I'm going to go back and add a little bit of detail. I don't know how far we're going to get in this video. But let's start with step 1. The first thing you have to do before you do anything else in college recruiting, before you do Twitter, before you do email, before you do showcases, is get video of your kid playing well. That's like the general gist of what we're really trying to do here. Okay? And then step 2 is going to be optimize social media. This would be Twitter and or Instagram. Ironically, most coaches are on Twitter, but with specifically female sports, there tends to be a little bit more interaction on Instagram. I don't really know why that is, but it is the case. And the reason that we do social media before we do anything else, sort of like email, is because a lot of times when you email college coaches, they won't be ready to respond to you right away, but they might be willing to take a smaller step, like following you on social media. And if our social media is not optimized, if we're not ready for them on that platform, then they may not follow us. We may have a little bit of a leaky bucket situation where we're losing opportunities. So we want to optimize that social media before we do something like email so that we don't have a leaky bucket. Step 3 is before we can even email coaches, we need to build a target list of schools, right? We need to have an actual list of schools that we're going to reach out to. Step 4 would be email college coaches, right? And then step 5 and 6 are going to be associated with that. So we need to follow up with schools that did not respond. And then step 6 is we need to build relationships with coaches that did respond, right? And then step 7 is going to be attend showcases and camps for schools that you are already in contact with when possible, right? To prove that what they saw on video was real and accurate, right? Okay, and then we're probably going to stop there. That'll probably be the most of it. And then we're just going to say there are 20 plus other things we could talk about in college recruiting, but these are the most important to get started. Okay? So we have our outline, sort of, and we may add to it or we may take away from it, but this is the general gist of what we're talking about. And so the first one is we have get video of your kid playing well. So what does good video look like? Okay. So good video. Well, let's say this. What are college coaches looking for in a recruiting video, right? What do they want to see from you? The first thing that they want to see in a recruiting video is the video needs to be somewhat visible. You're not an ant on the screen. It's not insanely shaky. And what was the other one I was going to say? It's not insanely shaky. Let's just start with that, right? So obviously we need to have clear video that they can actually watch and see, because if they can't evaluate you on the video, then what's the point of the video in the first place, right? So it doesn't have to be like Hollywood level video, but it needs to be good enough, okay? So the video has to be somewhat visible. Looking for a lot of video, right? A lot of video indicates that you have performed well many times. If you go, and this happens sometimes when I talk to parents and they say, you know, we just don't have a ton of video because we don't have there just haven't been that many clips in game that have been worth sharing. That is a red flag, right? That's a red flag that your kid is not doing enough in game to actually prove to coaches that they're good enough to play at the next level. The best players, really good players who are capable of playing at the next level, don't have a hard time getting video, because every time that they go out and play, they're performing well, which is exactly the trait of a D1 player or even just a player in college, right? And so coaches are going to look for a lot of video. They're going to look for video for every single skill that your position needs to showcase, right? And so there are probably 5 or 10 different skills that your kid's specific position needs to showcase. You need to showcase every single one of those skills, okay? This is in general what college coaches are looking for. And so here are your action steps. Step 1, go through all the existing video. Step 1, write out every single skill that your kid needs to showcase for their position, right? And then we're going to say, for example, and let's add a here. For example, let's say football wide receiver. Skills they need to showcase, okay? So you might need to showcase deep routes, you might need to showcase short routes, you might need to showcase catching in traffic, you might need to showcase blocking, screen passes, sweeps / run plays, speed, strength, or like jumping, right? Something like that. Did I say jumping? Yeah. Jumping plays, something like that. High pointing, something, that kind of thing. Okay. So these are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 different, skills, you could say, that a wide receiver would need to showcase. So you want to write out every single skill that your kid needs to showcase for whatever sport that you play. And if you're like, Jack, I don't know what positions my kid or what, skills my kid needs to showcase, you probably do, right? They're all the skills that your coach or your trainer or whatever is trying to teach your kid. If you're a baseball player, right, and you're an infielder, it's backhands, forehands, double plays, right? It's hitting, it's stealing, it's bunting, it's all the different things that might come together for your kid's position in grad class, right? So the first step is writing all of those things out. The second step here is go through all of your kids' existing video and choose and pick out every video worth sharing. Worth sharing is flattering to the player. Identify, put these videos into the into their respective skill buckets and see which skills you do not have video for, right? So you're going to go through and let's say we'll use this wide receiver example for football. You're going to go through and say, hey, so we have deep routes, we have short routes. We'll just say you have, these right here, but you don't have showcasing speed, strength, or jumping. Then your job is to go get video for speed, strength, and jumping, because what's happening right now is that your recruiting process is essentially like a ship in the water. And if the ship has a bunch of holes in it, then the ship is going to sink. Those holes in college recruiting are all the different skills that your kid needs to showcase to college coaches. So if you're missing some of these skills, right, a coach might see these and say, okay, cool. So I know that the kid can perform those skills, but I didn't see these ones. And so now that coach has a little bit of doubt that your kid really is the complete package and the complete player, right? And so we want video for every single skill that a coach needs to showcase or that a coach is trying to evaluate your kid on. And so you're going to go through and grab all the existing video that you have, pick out every video worth sharing, put it into the different buckets for these skills, and then identify the skills of which you don't have any video. Then, 3, go get video for the skills that you do not have any video for, or say any or insufficient video for, right? So now, you're going to have video of every single skill that you need to showcase for a college coach, which is great. That's exactly what you're looking for. All right, so go get video. What is it? Okay, so 4, cut those videos up into individual clips. Should be between 10 and 30 seconds long. Step 5, upload those videos to YouTube. 6, title those videos appropriately, right? Example title would be Skill Showcased, Grad Class, or let's go name, grad class, and position. And then you might have date recorded, right? Something like this. And so it would be like streak touchdown catch, Jack Kruger, 2026 wide receiver. And this happened on, May 5th of 2024 or something like that, right? Okay, this is a really good start. When you first start talking about video, this is already going to put you pretty much ahead of like 90% of players, which that's exactly what we're looking for. Okay, so get video of the kid playing well. Let's drop this to black. All right. What are college coaches looking for in a recruiting video? Video needs to be somewhat visible, not on the screen. It's not insanely shaky. Looking for a lot of video, we'll say quantity. Looking for video for every single skill that your position needs to showcase. Great, so here are the action steps. Step 1, write out every single skill that your kid needs to showcase for their position. This is an example. Step 2, we wrote out step 1. Let's not do that. Let's just do that, that's easier. 2, go through all the kids' existing video and pick out every video worth sharing, right? Put the videos into their respective skill buckets and then see which skills you don't have video for. Go get video for the skills that you do not have any or insufficient video for. Then once you have all of that video, you're going to cut that video up into individual clips, and they should be between 10 and 30 seconds long. You're going to upload those videos to YouTube, and then you're going to title those videos appropriately using this right here. All right. For video, there are a billion other things that we could talk about, but remember, we are talking about the very basics, and that is the first piece of videos. Now, let's talk about optimizing social media, okay? So when we talk about optimizing social media, there's a couple things that we need to do. What is the purpose of social media? Okay? There are two. Build interest and, This is generate interest and build interest, okay? We essentially want to get more schools in our ecosystem. So we want to generate that interest, basically getting exposure, getting on the maps of college coaches, and then build interest. Take schools that already know who we are and continue to build that interest over a longer period of time. So those are the two things that we're trying to accomplish with social media. Now, when we talk about what needs to actually happen, the first thing we need to do is we need to optimize your bio. Okay? Because your bio is going to be the thing that actually converts a college coach visiting to a college coach following. Once they are following you, they're now in your ecosystem, and you can continue to keep them updated as to what's going on. So when we talk about optimizing the bio, there's a couple things that should be included, right? First thing is we want the word uncommitted in there. Reason why is because if a coach searches uncommitted in your position in grad class, your profile has a higher chance of showing up. If you don't have uncommitted, it's less likely that that's going to happen, okay? Of course, you'll have your name. This should also, by the way, if you have a nickname, should be full and nickname. So for instance, my legal name is actually Timothy. I'm Timothy Kruger. Everyone calls me Jack. I've been called Jack from birth. But if everything in baseball was Timothy Kruger for me, then I would want to have that on my profile, because guess what? If a coach sees my stats or sees my name on a roster somewhere and then searches for me on Twitter, but my Twitter name is Jack, then they're not going to find my profile. It's going to be very difficult for them to do that. And so I would want to have Timothy in, quotations, Jack, and then Kruger. That way, whether they search Jack or whether they search Timothy, they'd still be able to find me. So we have name, we have position and grad class. You might have high school team, maybe like a travel team. You'd have GPA, if good. You'd have height and weight, if an asset. If you're tall and big and strong, include it. If you're short, don't include it, right? And so that's probably enough. You could put an email address if you want in there. You don't have to, but something like that. Of course, it's also note, please use a clean headshot of your kid's face for the profile photo. If you're not comfortable using a headshot on social media, use a sports photo. Also, it's not a bad idea to use a sports photo for the banner photo that appears at the top of your profile, right? So this is just a little bit of like a professional, looks a little bit nicer kind of thing when you have a good headshot so they actually know the player that they're recruiting, and then you just have a banner at the top so that they know, oh yeah, this is a football player, this is a volleyball player, this is a soccer player. That's exactly what you're looking for there. Okay, let's take away that gap. All right, so we're gonna optimize the bio. That's the first thing that we need to do because we need to convert those first-time visitors into followers so that we can keep them up to date with what's going on. The second thing that we need to do is a pinned tweet, right? So the pinned tweet is going to be the first impression that a coach gets of you, because the first thing they're going to see after they follow you is they're going to scroll down and they're going to see your pinned tweet. Now, your pinned tweet, there's a lot of different ways that you could go about this, right? You could write, there's so many different, types of tweets. But I would probably have a pinned tweet, just one example. It could be something like, we'll say 2025 catcher, right? And then we say, 4.02 GPA, defensive player, oops, now I'm in caps lock, player of the year. And then we can say like, led the league in home runs, which your defensive player of the year and led the league in home runs. Great player. That's awesome. But then I would want to, looking for a home, right? Something like that. And then you're going to attach good video. You can either do one longer video, like a highlight video, okay? Or you can do 3 to 4 shorter videos, right? So we need some sort of video there. Remember, that video is going to be the first impression. So we want it to be really our best video. That's why I like using 3 to 4 shorter videos, because then you can include like the best ones, right? You can go in, you can say like, these are the best clips that I have. I might have 30 clips. These are the best 4. And then you can include those. The other thing here that we're going to want to do, we'll say pro tip, don't include the link to the video. Post the video natively into Twitter so that the video auto plays and the coach doesn't need to be redirected. This is actually a really big deal, because if you have video where they have to click on like a YouTube link and then they go somewhere else, and I know we talk about YouTube, this is different, okay? So we want to actually post the video natively into Twitter, right? You just go to the attach the button and you add the video. We want to do that because then it will autoplay when someone scrolls on the timeline. It makes it very easy for coaches to watch that video. There's less friction there. So that is definitely what we want to do. All right, so that's the pro tip. Attach good video. We'll just bold that as well. All right, so we've optimized the bio. We got the pinned tweet. For now, that's enough. That's good enough. We could talk about all the different tweets. It's a good idea to have a little bit of activity already going on Twitter before, or Instagram, before you go and do something like emailing coaches. If it's a brand new Twitter account, I'd love for you to put like 5 posts on Twitter before you do that, just so that there's something there for coaches to grab onto. The other thing that I would do in this bio that's not listed is link YouTube channel in description, right? Or just link YouTube channel is fine. We want to link that YouTube channel because they're going to scroll. Here's what's going to happen. This is what it's going to look like. They're going to come to your profile because they heard about you, saw you, whatever. They're going to read your bio. Okay. Sorry. They're going to look at the profile photo. They're going to read the bio. And then they're going to go down to the pinned tweet. If they like what they see in the pinned tweet, they're probably going to look through your timeline. And then if they like all of that, they might scroll up and then go to the YouTube channel, which is going to take them off of Twitter. And then we're creating, like we talked about up here, this awesome YouTube channel that's going to make it really easy for coaches to recruit you. So that's sort of how all of these things work together. So you want to do the optimization of the bio. You want to have the pinned tweet. There's a billion other things that we could talk about when it comes to social media. We could talk about DMing coaches, tagging coaches, posting. We talk about hot cognition. So this would be when a coach follows you, you should be reaching out to those coaches. There's a lot that we can do there, but this is the bare bones, the first thing that we should do. Also worth noting that this pretty much applies to Instagram as well. You do basically the exact same thing. You can pin posts on Instagram as well. You're just going to need to require some sort of photo to go with it because it's Instagram, right? So just post a sports photo on there and you should be fine. All right, so then we're moving to building a target list of schools. So when we talk about a target list of schools, volume matters. And then the other piece of it is we want variation. Like we don't just want to hit one type of division. We want to hit multiple. So let's start with volume matters. Okay. And so, well, maybe not. I'm trying to think about how I want to do this. Yeah. So the general idea is to start with a big list and then filter down from the interest that you generate. So instead of going super narrow in the beginning, what happens is a lot of people say, I got 10, 20, 30 schools that we're really interested in. And then they just go and try to hit those 10, 20, or 30 schools. There's a couple different problems with this. The first is that it's not enough schools. Like you're just gonna have a hard time generating interest from that few of schools. But the second thing is that you're gonna lose out on time. Because if you're spending the first 6 or 12 months trying to hit those 30 schools and that doesn't work out, and so in a year you decide, oh, you know what, we need to widen the group of schools that we're looking at now because we couldn't generate interest from the 30 of them. Well, now, sure, you widen the number of schools that you're looking at, but you did it a year later. So there's less spots available then than there are right now. So why can't we just flip those and do it in the reverse and start with a really wide number of schools. You don't have to be in love with every single one of these schools, but you start with a wide number of schools and then try and generate as much interest as you possibly can. And then once you generate that interest, then you can say, okay, I got 10 schools interested. Now, which of these am I actually interested in, right? And you can filter down and say, well, of these 10, I'm really only interested in 6, right? And then you can move forward with those 6 schools. This also gives you the benefit of having leverage, right? Because instead, let's say, for instance, you email 10 schools and you get one response from a school that you're absolutely stoked about. You're like, yes, I got a response from this school. Guess what they're going to ask? They're going to say, hey, who else are you talking to? And because you only emailed 10 schools and you only got one response, your answer is, well, nobody. And that coach is going to say, if you were a good player, wouldn't other schools be recruiting you? Like, what happens there? And now doubt has just entered that coach's mind, and now you're fighting an uphill battle. Whereas if you go contact a ton of schools and you get 10 interested schools and someone says, hey, who else are you talking to? You're like, I'm talking to this school and this school and this school and this school, and you're just rattling them off, and the coach is like, whoa, must be a good player. That's what we're looking to do. So we want to start with a big list and filter down. So actually, we probably don't need this yet. Okay. So first thing, we want a bare minimum of 50 schools on the list. 100 is preferred. Okay. So we're looking for this. We also want a wide array of divisions. Best if hitting all of them. We don't just want D1. We don't just want D2. We want all of them. D1, D2, D3, NAI, JUCO. We want all of them. So we're going to hit a wide array of divisions. And so it could be something very as simple, something as simple as 20 D1, 20 D2, 20 D3, 20 NAIA, and 20 JUCOs, right? Something like that. That right there is, do the math, 100 schools. All right. And so some things to consider when putting together your list of schools, okay? Because especially if your kid is like a freshman in high school, they probably don't know what they want to do 4 years from now when they're going to college. Like, they don't know what kind of school they want to go to. And so that's why you start wide. And so here are some questions to consider. I don't know why I started a new one here. Some questions to consider. 1, location. Does your kid want to be somewhere warm? Somewhere cold? Are there specific locations that are of interest or are deal breakers, right? If your kid is like, hey, I'm not dealing with Northeast winters, then you can pretty much count out all of those schools. So the other thing that you're looking for is academics, right? How good are your kids' academics? How much do you care about academics? How strong are the schools that you're interested in, right? That's it. How academically strong are the schools that you're interested in, okay? Another thing is far from home, right? Is your kid interested in moving away from home, being close to home, right? Another thing you might want to consider is play or bench. Play or bench. Would your kid rather ride the bench at a, top school or play every day for a less competitive school? There's not a right or a wrong. They're just different kinds of experiences, right? They're just different kinds of experiences. Those are some pretty good, ways to start. We could really break this up into a whole bunch of different ones. The other thing with academics is like, what major is your kid interested in studying, right? Something like that. Okay. All right, so we're putting that list together. We're going to email, or put roughly 100 schools on that list. We got 4 different things. I don't know why this is now, okay, now it's not yellow. Putting those together, sweet. Again, this is just like the basics. And so I think putting together a list of schools, this at least gives you something. You could put, 20 D1. I think finding 100 based on even just these is doable. I don't think that's crazy. All right, so step 4, emailing college coaches. So we have the video all set up. We have our social media set up. We have our target list of schools that we're going to consider, and now we're going to email college coaches. All right, so what is the point of emailing college coaches? There are two things we're trying to, the one thing we're trying to accomplish, start a conversation with a coach, start a conversation with a coach, or get them into our ecosystem, right? This would be like a social media follow ecosystem, okay? This is the one thing that we are really trying to accomplish. We're not trying to get a scholarship with these emails. We are trying to start conversations with college coaches and just get them into that ecosystem. All right, so how do we do that, right? Step 1, get coaches to open our email. Step 2, get coaches to click on our video link. Step 3 is get coaches to respond or enter our ecosystem. Okay? So these are the 3 things that we're trying to accomplish. How to get coaches to open your email, right? First thing, there's 4 things that you need when you are trying to get coaches to open your email. The first thing that you need is you need a credible email address, right? Credible email address would be older than 1 year. If not, then you must warm up the email address, which essentially means that you have to send emails from that email address to make it look older than it actually is. There's software that can do this. Again, this is supposed to be the basics, and so I may end up actually taking that out. But again, it's just the first place to start. So credible email address needs to be older than 1 year and have some history and have proper settings, right? Again, I'm not going to go into that. I might even remove this from the actual document itself because this is supposed to be basics, and now I'm kind of getting a little bit into the weeds. So the first thing you need is a credible email address. The second thing you need is to email the right coach. Do not email the head coach. There are times when you should email the head coach. By and large, you're almost always emailing the assistant coach. Almost always. It depends on the sport, it depends on the level, but most of the time you're emailing one of the assistant coaches. So do not email the head coach, email the recruiting coordinator. If a coach is not designated as the recruiting coordinator, then email one of the assistants. It doesn't really matter which one. All assistants do recruiting, and coaches talk / share info about the players they are recruiting, right? So these are the coaches that you need to email. The third thing that you need is you need the get the correct / current email address for each coach. If you have the wrong email address, your email will never reach the coach. You might be able to hear that outside. It's a nice little beeper. And the fourth thing is the subject line. Don't overthink this. It's not nearly as important as you think. Just use this. Name, grad class, position. Literally all you need to do. Everyone writes these like super long subject lines of all the different reasons why a coach should recruit them, and it's a waste of time. It doesn't actually do anything. And if you're wondering, Jack, I don't know, it seems like the subject line is really important. I don't know. We've sent over 20,000 emails in the last, 12 months. So I don't know. You decide. Okay, so that's how to get coaches to open your email. How to get coaches to click on your video, right? Because we absolutely need college coaches to watch your video. Remember, we spend all this time up here putting together intentional video. Like, what skills do we need to showcase? Okay, how can we fix those skills? And there's other things that we can do here, but how do we actually showcase our ability to perform all of these skills? So we're spending so much time on that. Why? Because it's going to be the reason that we actually get responses, because we're looking to get coaches to click on our video. And if a coach clicks on your video, you got about 10 to 12 seconds to prove that they should spend more time than that watching you, right? So we need to have that video set up. It needs to look good. We got to make it really easy for coaches to recruit you. So how do you get coaches to click on your video? This is not as simple as here are the 4 things, right? When we talk about getting coaches to click on your video, there are really a couple mistakes that you just don't want to commit, right? There are a million ways that we could get coaches to click on your video, but it's more about what do we avoid? What do we avoid? So how do you get coaches to click on your video? First thing is write a short email. Read your email out loud, and if it takes you more than 30 seconds to read your email to completion, it is too long, okay? The second thing is remove all stats from your email. This is very controversial because everyone is like, oh my gosh, but coaches care about stats so much. They really don't care about stats that much. There are a couple positions in specific sports that coaches very much care about stats. For instance, if you play baseball and you are a pitcher, they will care about your velocity. If you throw 82 miles an hour, it is a non-starter, right? This is as a junior or a senior, right? That's a non-starter. As a freshman, sophomore, you're still growing, right? I get that. But as you're getting closer and closer to college, right, you can't be throwing 82. It's going to be a non-starter. It doesn't matter if you get people out. They're just going to say it doesn't play at the next level. So the fact is there are specific circumstances where it makes sense to share stats. For instance, if you are a pitcher in baseball, let's use the same example, and you throw 100 miles an hour, you should absolutely include that in your email. You will get every single school interested, basically, right? But the thing is, the reason that I say remove all stats is because most players end up including stats in their email that actually hurt them. And so when I am talking to the masses, right, I'm talking on YouTube or Instagram, I'm like, guys, just remove all stats so you don't need them to get coaches to watch your video. And if you include them and they're bad, it might actually hurt you. And so as a safety precaution, I'm like, listen, just get rid of all of them. Now, when we actually work with clients and I talk to clients, there are some clients where we absolutely include stats in those emails because their stats are really, really good. Because I actually then go through and I'm like, oh yeah, this stat's good. And so we have professionals that are picking these, right? So it's a little bit of a different scenario, but a lot of you don't have that. And so if you don't have that, don't just add in stats that you think are good, because there are a lot of stats that people think are good that are not actually that good. And they lose interest because of it. And so what happens is if you include a stat that is not good and the coach sees that, they're never even going to watch your video. They're just going to click off immediately. And we don't want that. So we're going to remove all stats from the email. The other thing is we'll remove all self-evaluations. A self-evaluation is where you are telling the coach what kind of player you are. So you're saying like, hey coach, I hustle, I'm a leader, I have high game IQ, right? That kind of thing. I'm a good teammate. Those are self-evaluations. College coaches don't trust you or your kid, to evaluate without bias, right? You're gonna have bias. You're either the parent or you're the kid. You're gonna have bias. So they don't trust you to be able to evaluate yourself. So all you're doing by adding self-evaluations is making the email longer. That is all you're doing. You are making the email longer. Okay, so you want to write a short email. You want to remove all stats from your email. You want to remove all self-evaluations. You want to avoid information overload. Information overload is where parents tend to, and this is parents who commit this more often than athletes actually, which is that you have all these reasons why a college coach should recruit your kid. You're like, this is amazing. You know, my kid is amazing. He's really, really good on the field, and he has great grades, and he's part of FCA, and he's, you know, works really hard, high game IQ, right? All these different things. And then you start adding in like, here's my YouTube channel, here's my summer schedule, here's my coach contact information, here's our NCSA profile, here's our PBR profile, here's my rivals profile, right? And now all of a sudden your email has like 100 different things in it. And that is information overload. What you got to remember is that this first email is just about starting a conversation with a college coach or getting them into your ecosystem. All of that great information about your kid will come out eventually. I promise it will. But you're not trying to deliver it all in the first conversation. They're just trying to get a feel if your kid is even in the ballpark talent range of what they're looking for. If they are, then they will take the next steps, right? They'll take the next steps, and then you can disseminate all of that information in little bits over time, which is going to be key for follow-ups, which, you know, we'll talk about a little bit here. We're not going to go into too much depth. So the point is that you want to avoid information overload. You're just trying to address talent. That's it. Maybe academics if it's a high academic school. But a lot of times, even if it's a high academic school, what we do is we don't include academics, and they watch the video and they go, oh, we like this player. Guess what their response is? It's, hey, can you send me your transcripts? I want to see your grades. Guess what? We just opened the door to a conversation with that coach because we didn't include it, right? I don't know. Maybe there's something to it. So we're going to avoid information overload. And then lastly, remove the paradox of choice. The paradox of choice basically means that if you have 3, 4, 5 different, and also let's just say add CTA. The paradox of choice basically says that the more choices that someone has, the less likely they are to choose the thing that you want them to choose. So if you give a coach 5 different links of like, here's my profile, here's my schedule, here's my video, we want them to go to the video. The more links you include, the less likely they are to go to that thing. So we remove all links. We only include the video. And now guess where they are going to go? Your video, because they don't have any other option. That's exactly what we want. And then you're going to add a CTA. CTA basically means instead of spewing information at a coach and just sort of giving them, I don't know, text on a page, you're trying to start a conversation. So this is usually in the form of a question, right? Usually in the form of a question, so that now we can get a response. They actually have a message to respond to. If I'm like, you know, here's all my stuff, and then there's nothing after that, imagine that versus here's all my stuff. Hey, is this something you're interested in? Now, I wouldn't use is this something you're interested in? But the point is that now you have something to grab onto. Now you can actually respond to my question. We want to do the same thing with college coaches. All right, so this is at least a good start. It's not the most detailed, but it's a good start. So, email college coaches, what's the point? Point is to start a conversation or get them in our ecosystem. How do we do that? Okay? How do we get coaches to open those emails? How do we get coaches to click on the video? I think that that's a pretty good start in terms of emailing coaches. So that email action step is contact the 100 schools on your list, right? Boom. Also, if you're like, holy crap, Jack, that sounds insane. Well, first of all, we tend to automate the process, and we use software to do that. But even if you don't, for instance, if you send 5 emails per week, which takes, how long does 5 emails take? 30 minutes, right? Maybe 30 to 60, we'll say, just in case someone is feeling extra slow. If you send 5 emails per week for 20 weeks, which is 5 months, you will send 100 emails. Pretty simple. If you send 10 emails per week for 10 weeks, which is 2.5 months, you will send 100 emails. This is 10 emails per week. How long does 10 emails per week take? 60 to 90 minutes, maybe? That might even be long. Maybe it's a little bit shorter than that, 30 to 60 minutes, right? And so this is just to give you an idea of how you could break this up. And then if you were like, no, Jack, I could do way more than that. If you send 20 emails per week, which might take you, I don't know, 2 hours, which honestly, it might be less than that, but in 5 weeks, you will send 100 emails. Bingo, right? This is just an idea of how to break it down. Again, we use software to do this, but if you want to do it manually, you're good to go. All right, this needs to get dropped down here. Email, action step. Okay, step 5, follow up with schools that did not respond. Part of this, and I don't know, I might end up removing this, I'm not sure. You definitely want to do it, but if you're not using software to do it, it's incredibly challenging, because if you're going to email 100 schools, for instance, and let's say none of them respond, which is unlikely, but let's just say, then that means that if you're going to send 3 emails to every school, which is what I recommend, then you're sending 300 emails manually. That's a lot. It's a lot to do manually. That's why we have software do the work, and we help our clients set that up so that they click one button and then it sends all the emails. It's beautiful. So I might end up removing this because I don't want to put this like unreasonable burden on someone who is just starting the process. Remember, this is literally for people who don't know where to start in college recruiting. And so if that's the case, yeah, you know what? I think this is too much. Just because they can't automate that process, so they manually have to send those, and that's so overwhelming. I can't morally go to a parent and be like, hey, all right, you got to manually send 300 emails, otherwise your kid is not going to get recruited. Like, that doesn't seem fair. So build relationships with coaches that did respond. This you have to do, and this is much more reasonable. So if you send 100 emails, here are some possible metrics. 80, right? We'll say about 80% of coaches will open the email. 60, well, let's just take it out of percent. We'll just say 80 coaches will open the email. 60 will open the email and need your position and grad class. 40 will open the email, need your position and grad class, and click on your video. And then of that, you can assume that 10 will think that you are good enough and respond or follow you. Respond, let's say, follow you, or contact your coach. Note, 10 is high. Most people will not reach this. It depends on the level of schools that you email, the talent your kid has, the quality of your email, the coaches you contact, the quality of your video, the quantity of your video. Yeah, depends on all of those. That's probably like a good start. And luck, right? Because there's always luck involved in college recruiting. So 10 would be high. This also is dependent on these numbers being accurate. For instance, if you don't get an 80% open rate, which would be high, that would be that you're above average, like you really know what you're doing. And so that's 80%. So this number might actually be 70, right? Or 60, which means that this number will be lower, which means this number will be lower, which means this number will be lower, right? So 10 would be high. This would be a 10% reply rate, which would be strong. Definitely not out of reach. We've had people get 30 responses from like 100, but it also assumes that you send at least 2 follow-ups to each school, which we did not cover here because that's more advanced, right? Something like that. Okay, so building relationships with coaches. The point of this is to say that there will likely be 3 to 8 schools that you now need to build relationships with. Follow the slide below to do that. Okay? So, how to build relationships with college coaches and turn interest into offers. Okay? So, remember when we said, I was talking about information overload, and I was like, hey, don't include all of the information in the first. I wonder how long this video is. I don't have like a tracker on it, so I don't know. We're gonna keep rolling. We're almost done anyway. And I said, hey, so don't commit information overload in the first email because we want to take that information and disseminate it into pieces over time. And so that is where this sort of comes into play. Also, the video that we talked about, the reason that we organized it the way that we did, and there's other ways that you can organize that video to make this easier, but the reason that we did that is because now it also makes following up with coaches easier. If you have a 4-minute highlight video and that's the only video that you have, and you use that video to get interest from college coaches, you don't have anything to follow up with them. Because what are you gonna do? You're gonna send the same 4-minute highlight video over and over? Of course not. Of course not. So, if we can break that video up into the individual clips that are 10 to 30 seconds long, now we have lots of video that we can dish out, right? So, how to build relationships with coaches and turn interest into offers. Rule number 1, do not put the entire burden of communication onto college coaches. You must also be willing to reach out to them. It's not annoying if you do it properly. Rule number 2, follow-up emails should take less than 10 seconds to read. Rule number 3, you must always include video in follow-up emails. Rule number 4, you should disseminate information slowly over time. This means sharing small tidbits of info about your kid in each email. For instance, your GPA in email 1, your season schedule in email 2, your recruiting profile, if you have one, which you might not and you don't need one, your recruiting profile in email 3, your social media profile in email 4, right? So you have all these different rules. Rule number 5, you continue to follow up with coaches even if they don't respond, right? Rule number 6, send follow-up messages at the same time on the same day each week. This conditions the coach to expect to hear from you. This is secret sauce that no one else does, but is incredibly powerful. Rule number 7, at some point, stop sending messages and give the coach time to miss you. Hopefully, they reach out to you and wonder why you didn't send them a message that week. Even if that doesn't happen, it doesn't mean they're not interested. Keep following up. Rule number 8. Do this until you have a scholarship, right? So when we're building relationships with college coaches, there is a notion, there's a belief that you're just annoying them if you're sending them emails. Yes, if you are contacting them with huge essays and you're providing zero value and you're not making their lives easier, and instead you're just, doing stuff for you and not for them, then yes, you're annoying them. But coaches want to hear from you. Like, they want you to take the burden of communication off of them, because if they have to contact you every time that they want an update or video or to talk to you, it's exhausting, because they have to do this for dozens of players that they're recruiting on top of their coaching job, on top of them having visits at the school and school events, on top of their family life. Like, it's too much. It's too much. So don't put the entire burden of communication on a college coach. Don't do it. Don't do it. You should be building that relationship with a coach. Yes, there are ways to do this, better than others, of course. But this will at least give you, remember, this is just supposed to be a starter pack. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. This is what you're supposed to do, right? This is what you're supposed to do. Follow up with coaches. Build relationships with them. All right. I might have to add something here, but I think for the most part, that's fine. Rules. Yeah, okay. The last one is step 7. Attend showcases and camps for schools that you are already in contact with when it's possible. It's not always possible. To prove that what they saw in video was real and accurate. I don't think I was blacking out these other ones. We'll have to go back. Okay, so how to choose showcases and camps, okay? There are 3 primary reasons to attend actually, let's start with this. You must have a goal that you are trying to accomplish with each recruiting event. Meaning, use this framework to determine what you're trying to accomplish. By going to whatever showcase it is, I am hoping that X will happen. I think X is likely to happen because of reasons 1, 1, 2, and 3. Okay? The point is that you should never go to a recruiting event without having a goal in mind. If you're just going to events because you think that you're supposed to, you're trying to replace strategy with money. You don't know what to do in college recruiting, and you're not taking the time to educate yourself or learn what to do. And so instead you're saying, I'm just going to throw a bunch of money at the process and hope that it works out. This is a terrible plan, and you're going to lose a lot of money, and you're probably still not going to get any traction in college recruiting. You cannot just sidestep strategy or figuring out how the process actually works. Trust me, in high school, I went to literally every showcase or camp you could possibly imagine. I was traveling every single weekend. I was a good player. I had good stats. I did the whole thing. Guess what? College coaches largely don't showcases are, let me put it this way. Showcases are not for exposure. They're for evaluation. College coaches are not attending events to learn about new players. They're going to events to evaluate players that they've already talked to or heard of. So if you're not in communication with coaches before the event, you're unlikely to be in communication with them after the event. So every single showcase or camp that you go to, you need a reason. Why are you trying to go to that camp? Why? What is the purpose? Then what we say is, there are 3 primary reasons why you would attend a recruiting event. Reason 1, Reason 1, we'll say development. You think that your kid will improve their skill set by attending the event. Uncommon, but it happens. Second one would be experience. You want your kid to get the hang of, to experience recruiting events so that when pressure events come up, they are comfortable in that environment, right? That's a good reason to go, especially if you are like a freshman or a sophomore and you're going to recruiting events. Going for experience is a great idea. And then the last one is exposure. You want to get in front of college coaches. And everyone goes to recruiting events for this purpose. But ironically, like we said, going to events like this is not a good idea for exposure because a lot of events are for evaluation. So the point is, if you're going to a recruiting event, you need to have a reason. It's usually one of these 3 reasons, but you have to have a reason, right? So how do you pick recruiting events? 1, how many schools are you currently in contact with that will be at the event? If 0, reconsider. Right? Now, not to say that there's never a time that you should go to a recruiting event where you're not already talking to the school, but if it's 0, you should really ask yourself, why am I going to this event? Why? Okay? So, how do you pick recruiting events? How many schools you're currently in contact with that will be at the event? If 0, then reconsider. How far is the camp? If close, maybe it's worth it. What is the cost? And does it justify the result? And, do you think the results of that camp will justify the cost? Your first instinct on this question is probably right. If you immediately go, oh, I think it's definitely worth it, then it probably is. If you immediately go, well, it's probably not, just don't go. Just don't go, right? The goal is to use the interest that you generate in email and with social media to then, pick recruiting events that are worth your time and money. Because guess what? If you show up on campus to a recruiting event and you're already in contact with that school and there's 100 kids there, guess who they're going to watch? You, because they already talked to you. They know who you are. They watch your video. They like you. You. Those events are worth going to. Otherwise, if that's not you, you're one of the 99 schmucks who are there, and they're not going to watch you. They're going to watch the kid who they're already talking to. Bummer, right? Now, not always possible, but when possible, yeah, that's the goal. That's the goal. And then, like we said, there are 20 other things. I mean, there's more than 20. I mean, heck, there's 20 other things for each of these that we could talk about, but this at least gives you an idea of hey, this is what it looks like to start college recruiting. Step 7. Some of this is going to be blacked out. Okay. It's probably okay. Right? So this is emailing coaches. Oh, I don't want to do that. Step 3, step 2, step 1. Bingo. So, I'll probably need to go back. I'm going to make some revisions to this. But I don't know. Hopefully it was helpful to kind of hear me talk about recruiting in real time. All of this obviously just kind of done off the cuff. Okay, so don't know where to start in college recruiting. Follow this exact step-by-step process. Here's my 30-second rap sheet. Boom, right? One client's talking to 43, 90 plus coaches, reach out in the last 3 weeks. Cool, let's get started. Get video, right? Then we said optimize social media and then build your target list of schools because now the video is ready for emails and you have your social media. So now we're going to build the target list of schools so that we can start sending emails. Then we're going to send emails to college coaches. I did not talk about follow-ups. Again, it's an absolutely critical part of college recruiting, but if you don't have software, it's so hard to do at scale. And so I just don't feel like putting that burden on families. I don't think that's fair. So we skipped to building relationships with coaches that did respond. We talked about the math behind that. Talked about how to build those. And actually we changed this. So this would be step 6 right here. Step 6. attending showcases and camps, a little bit on that. So I may go through and add a little bit more or subtract, I don't know, but at least this will give you a good idea of sort of what the process looks like anytime I create a guide like this. Anything that you see that we post out doesn't just magically appear. It's me behind a little computer ripping this stuff out. So let me know if you guys like this. If you like this kind of thing where you watch me build recruiting stuff in real time, throw a comment down below. I would like to know. I like doing it because I can film a YouTube video at the same time that I build a guide, so it makes sense in terms of my time. I get more bang for my buck in terms of time. So if you like this kind of thing, throw a comment below and say, yeah, this was sweet, please do this again. Or, Jack, this was stupid, please don't do this, I didn't like this. Both are fair game. So anyway, guys, probably, I don't know if the guide will be done by the time I post this YouTube video, but I'm going to try to leave it in the description of this video so you can go check it out. If it's not in the description of this video, check future videos, see it on Instagram. Like you won't miss it. I'll be posting it everywhere once it's done. And yeah, of course, if you're a parent of a high school athlete and you want help in the recruiting process, I'll leave a link to book a call with us, and we'll walk you through what we do and help your kid get interest in offers and find a school that they love. So if that's of interest, check the description. Otherwise, I will see you guys next time.